Welcome back to Strange Form. Today we are looking at PlayArt's Kai, Aliens, Colonial Marines No.1, Lurker Alien. One of only two alien figures in the PlayArt's Kai line, the other being the Spitter Alien from the same game. I'm reviewing this one because it's the closest that PlayArts has ever come to a Big Chap figure, which is a shame because they could produce some really solid figures, and I would love to see them produce at least a few film-accurate alien figures. But like I said, this is the only one out there close to the original Alien, and it goes on eBay and Mercari for between $50 and $100. So this one being closest to the Big Chap design, I decided to take a look. The packaging is a collector-friendly window box design and has the black, white, and blue color scheme of the game box art design. The figure itself comes secured in a vacuform plastic tray. My immediate impression is that I don't like the face portrait at all. I find the teeth and lower jaw to be annoyingly small and off-putting, but the rest of the body looks like something out of Alien Resurrection or the first Alien vs. Predator film, which isn't terrible, but also not my favorite of the creature designs amongst the films. I can already tell that this is going to be a hard one for me, as I want to like it, but I don't know if I can get past that face. But maybe it has a great personality, who knows. Besides the figure on the top tray, you also have the base plate with an alternate battle-damaged head sculpt and the attachable bendy wire tail. Like everything from PlayArts, the materials definitely seem like quality plastics, and the bendy tail feels like it has a heavier gauge wire. The figure itself is chunky and heavier than a NECA entry, and all of the parts seem to move freely. And you can see here the instructions on swapping the battle-damaged head with the standard version. Besides the figure and base, you also have a support stand that you have to assemble yourself, and the support can't be taken out of the package without doing damage to the insert, so I'm probably just going to use the Mezco stand for the review, as it's thinner and less intrusive, but it is interesting that they have you assemble the stand, screws and all. The bendy tail is detailed and fairly rigid, holding position well, but if you've seen one bendy tail, you've pretty much seen them all, except for how this one protrudes from the back. Unlike most alien figures that have the tail hanging down from between the legs, this one jets out from the back, causing the figure to look sort of like a velociraptor. Because this one's high point is definitely the ability to pose it in a stalking or crouching position. The articulation is well done with ball joints everywhere, i.e. wrists and elbows, shoulders and neck, tails, hips, knees, and shins, all of which are tight enough to hold position well as the ball joints. There is articulation of the jaw and the inner mouth. There's also a small amount of articulation on the dorsal spine, but oddly enough, not enough to allow it to be posed straight out when he's in a standing position. The sculpt is really designed to display the alien in a crouching or running pose. Overall, everything feels good in hand except for the stupid face, which in my opinion looks more like a Muppet than a Xenomorph. And the battle-damaged portrait is just no better, looking alarmingly like the Chatterer Cenobite from Hellraiser. And I have the same problem with both head sculpts, and it's that damn chin and jaw are entirely too small. The teeth look like chickpeas, and on the domed version, the dome jets out too far, hanging significantly over the mouth. The figure is really an almost for me. I would have honestly given it a much higher mark if the head sculpt was less sloppy. But let's get into some of the positives. The sculpt is crisp and fairly detailed, and the paint applications aren't terrible, if not slightly over-dependent on washes. At a distance, the color scheme looks okay, but on close inspection, there is a little bit of sloppiness. The details are more biomechanical than organic, but the reference for this one does seem to be really every single Alien film, rather than just one single iteration. As you can see here, the teeth are undersized and sloppily painted. The edge of the dome jets out nearly as far as the chin, which is also somewhat oversized, but the figure doesn't look terrible from the profile angle. The rear tubes look good and are positioned to have the creature look more natural in a crouching attack position than standing straight upright. The same is true of the tail, which is sculpted to come straight out of the butt at a sharp angle, rather than, again, hanging down between the legs. This is a really awkward sculpt if you want to have the figure standing straight up. But in a minute, we'll see why this really benefits a more dynamic style of posing. The figure is roughly the same size as the NECA AVP figures, which side by side doesn't show an enormous quality difference, at least not a $60 difference, which is what the high end of the market is right now. Although I will say that the PlayArts figure does feel a lot more durable, and holds position much better than the NECA counterpart. Aside from the wonky angle of the tail, Standing straight up, the alien is relatively imposing and reminiscent of McFarlane's Pumpkinhead Movie Maniac figure. The inclusion of the base with the extra head sculpt is a nice addition, but at this price point I would also like to see an egg, facehugger, or chest burster accessory thrown in the mix as well. But here we will look at the figure's strength. Posed more like a raptor, the entire thing starts to take on a life of its own. And while posing, the best thing to remember is that the sculpt uses the tail as counterbalance. So anytime that you hang the tail, more like a dinosaur or lizard, posing looks much more organic, and definitely makes me wish that the face sculpt was stronger, because there isn't any other alien figure with the tubes and dorsal spine that can be posed quite like this one. So in this respect, it is unique, and I know this isn't supposed to be a true representation of any of the creatures from the films, but is instead one of the ridiculous Colonial Marine subtypes, designed to make the game encounters more interesting and diverse. But the figure's face sculpt doesn't really represent the game well either, and here's where I would like to see PlayArts revisit the Alien franchise and bring us some movie-accurate figures. But for now, this is what's out there. Not the perfect organism, but there are some upsides. If you find this figure at between $20 and $40, I would say that it's a worthwhile purchase. However, anything beyond that, I would say, is only going to be worth it to those completing a collection, especially with better offerings out there. But what's your take on this one? Would you like to see PlayArts take another stab at it? Or are you satisfied with this outing? Let me know in the comments. In the end, I enjoyed posing the figure, but probably won't keep it for my personal collection. I think that the sticky little secret behind a lot of review channels is that we don't keep everything, and a lot of the time are selling items in order to procure new things for review, especially smaller channels that have not made any contact with distributors yet. This is also why we tend to review quote-unquote outdated items, to fill the gaps between more expensive releases. This is a nice enough figure, and if you have it and you love it, you should continue to love it. The face irks me, but you may see it in a completely different light. Now I hope you enjoyed this episode of Strange Form, and will help the channel grow by hitting the like button, commenting, and of course subscribing. And as always, remember, never stop collecting.